Michael and Ranger A.'s peaceful hike turned into a life-or-death struggle when a sudden fall trapped Michael on a dangerous cliff ledge. But it was Ranger A.'s fierce loyalty and quick thinking that sparked a daring rescue and uncovered a hidden criminal operation no one saw coming. Michael always found solace in the quiet embrace of nature, especially during his solo hikes along the rugged coastline near his hometown. The cliffs were his favorite place, a place where the ocean's roar drowned out the chaos of everyday life, and where the endless sky seemed to offer a fresh perspective. That morning, the air was cool and crisp, with the faint scent of salt and pine carried by the breeze. Michael's German shepherd, Ranger, trotted steadily at his side, alert and full of energy, as they followed the narrow, winding path that hugged the cliff's edge. The trail was known to be challenging. It twisted sharply through dense patches of shrubbery and rocky outcrops, with steep drops that disappeared into the crashing waves below. Michael had hiked this path many times before, always careful to stay a safe distance from the edge. But this day was different. The ground was damp from a light rain the night before, making the soil slippery and unstable in spots. As he moved forward, Michael's boots sank slightly into the soft earth, and a small cloud of dust rose with each step. Ranger's ears perked up suddenly as he sniffed the air, his body tensing. Michael slowed his pace, glancing around the rugged terrain. He noticed the path narrowing ahead, the cliff dropping even more steeply on the right side. There was an unusual stillness in the air, broken only by the distant cries of seabirds circling high above. The dog moved cautiously now, scanning the area, his paws barely making a sound on the rocky surface. Without warning, the unstable ground beneath Michael's feet shifted. A faint crack echoed in the silence, but it was too late to react. The earth gave way beneath him, and the world tilted wildly as he plummeted over the edge. Rocks scraped against his skin as he tumbled down the steep slope, pain flaring through his body with every jarring impact. Ranger barked sharply from above, his eyes wide with shock and concern as he watched his owner disappear out of sight. When Michael finally came to a stop, he was bruised and dazed, but alive. His body ached all over, and he noticed a sharp pain in his ankle that made even the smallest movement unbearable. The ledge where he landed was narrow and surrounded by jagged rocks. The ocean crashed far below, its thunderous sound filling the air and reminding him of the danger he was in. He struggled to find a stable position, the cold wind biting through his clothes as he tried to steady his breathing. Above him, Ranger paced anxiously along the cliff's edge. The dog's instincts told him that Michael was hurt and needed help, but the difficult terrain made it impossible for Ranger to reach him. Instead, the dog began barking loudly, his voice echoing off the cliffs in a desperate attempt to attract attention. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as Michael fought to stay conscious and warm, hoping that someone would hear Ranger's cries and come to their rescue. The fall had left Michael vulnerable and trapped in a place where rescue seemed unlikely. The rocky ledge was isolated, and the path along the cliff was narrow and unstable, with no easy way to climb down or climb back up. As the sun climbed higher, shadows shifted, and the wind grew stronger. Michael's thoughts raced, fear, pain, and determination all swirling within him as he faced the long hours ahead. Ranger's unwavering presence above was a small comfort, a sign that he was not alone in this dangerous moment. Despite the cold and the pain, Michael's mind clung to hope. The dog's frantic barking was a lifeline, a beacon in the wilderness. He knew that Ranger's loyalty and courage might just be the key to survival in this desperate situation. As the day wore on, neither man nor dog could have guessed that the events set in motion by this accident would soon involve strangers, danger, and a surprising twist far beyond anything they imagined. Michael lay on the narrow ledge, every breath a sharp reminder of the pain coursing through his body. His ankle throbbed with every slight movement, and the cold seeped through his clothes, chilling him to the bone. The ledge was barely wide enough for him to sit, and he was surrounded by jagged rocks that scraped his skin whenever he shifted. Above, the cliff towered intimidatingly, while below, the ocean crashed relentlessly against the rocks, the sound both soothing and menacing in its intensity. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. He was trapped far from the trail, unable to climb back up because the rocks were too steep and unstable and far too dangerous to descend further. Panic began to creep in as he realized how isolated he truly was. There was no cell service in this remote spot, and no one knew exactly where he had gone hiking. The thought of waiting for hours, maybe even days without help, weighed heavily on him. Above the ledge, Ranger refused to leave Michael's side. The dog paced anxiously at the cliff's edge, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon for any sign of rescue or passing hikers. Ranger's barking echoed through the canyon, sharp and urgent, cutting through the natural sounds of the wild. But the rugged landscape made it difficult for the sound to carry far. The dog's instincts pushed him to do more than just bark. He tried to find a path to reach Michael, but every attempt was met with sheer drops or loose stones. As the day wore on, Michael's strength began to wane. The pain in his ankle made even the smallest movement agonizing, and the cold started to numb his fingers and toes. His clothes were damp from the morning dew, and the wind picked up, howling through the cliffs like a restless spirit. The solitude was overwhelming, the vast emptiness around him amplifying his vulnerability. Despite the dire situation, Michael's thoughts never strayed far from Ranger. The dog was not only his companion, but now his guardian and hope. Seeing Ranger's determined gaze gave Michael a spark of courage. He knew the dog would not stop trying to get help, that his loyalty was unbreakable. It was this bond that kept Michael's spirit alive amid the cold and fear. Meanwhile, Ranger's persistence began to pay off. Hours after the fall, a distant sound reached the dog's ears, the crunch of footsteps on gravel. Ranger's body tensed and he barked louder than ever, running along the cliff's edge toward the noise. The footsteps belonged to a lone hiker who had taken an unfamiliar route along the cliffs. At first, the hiker was puzzled by the frantic barking, glancing around but seeing no sign of danger. But Ranger was insistent, circling the hiker and looking back toward the cliff face, as if urging the stranger to follow. Curiosity mixed with concern prompted the hiker to move closer to the cliff's edge, peering down into the chasm. There, barely visible on the rocky ledge, was Michael, pale and injured, but alive. The sight was shocking. A man stranded on a precarious ledge with no safe way up or down. The hiker immediately understood the urgency and pulled out a phone to call for help. The area's park rangers were contacted, and a rescue team was quickly assembled. Meanwhile, Ranger returned to pacing, his tail stiff, eyes never leaving Michael's position. His barking had done what seemed impossible. He had alerted someone who could help. But the hardest part was still ahead, getting Michael safely off the cliff before nightfall and before his injuries worsened. As the rescue team prepared their equipment and began their descent, Michael remained conscious but exhausted. He kept his gaze on Ranger, the dog's unwavering presence providing comfort amid the chaos. The cliff was a dangerous place, and every minute counted. What had started as a peaceful hike had turned into a life-or-death ordeal, with one dog's courage lighting the way toward salvation. The rescue team arrived swiftly, their arrival marked by the crunch of boots on gravel and the low hum of radios. They were a group of skilled park rangers and experienced climbers, trained for situations just like this, but even they felt a weight of urgency as they approached the cliff's edge. The narrow path that Michael and Ranger had followed was steep and unstable, making the rescue attempt risky from the start. The team quickly assessed the situation, taking in the perilous drop, the jagged rocks below, and Michael's fragile position on the ledge. Ranger stayed close to the rescuers, his ears perked and body alert. The dog's presence seemed to both calm and inspire the team, reminding them of the man they were there to save. The lead ranger began to prepare the ropes and harnesses, his hands steady despite the pressure. Every movement was deliberate and slow, as one wrong step could send someone tumbling down the cliff. The team knew the clock was ticking. The weather was shifting, clouds gathering on the horizon, threatening rain and wind that could make the rescue even more dangerous. As the first rescuer began the descent, carefully lowering himself down the rocky face, tension tightened the air. Michael lay still, his eyes fixed upward, watching the figure inch closer with each careful movement. The rocks beneath the rescuer crumbled slightly, sending small pebbles tumbling down into the crashing waves below. The precariousness of the climb was clear to all, but the team's focus was unshakable. Ranger continued barking, his voice a constant beacon, guiding the rescuers and giving Michael a lifeline of hope. When the rescuer finally reached the ledge, the relief was almost palpable. He immediately checked Michael's injuries, speaking calmly even though no one could hear his words. The twisted ankle was bad, but Michael's overall condition was stable enough for extraction. Securing the harness around Michael's body was a delicate process. The narrow ledge offered little room to maneuver, and every movement risked causing loose rocks to fall. Meanwhile, the wind began to pick up, tugging at ropes and gear as if nature itself was testing their resolve. Suddenly, a sharp rumble echoed through the cliffs. A rock slide had begun. The rescue team above gasped as a shower of stones and debris broke loose, hurtling down toward the ledge where Michael and the rescuer were. Ranger's barking intensified, frantic and urgent, as he tried to warn the others of the imminent danger. The rescuer shielded Michael, pulling him close to the cliff wall to avoid the worst of the falling rocks. The team above scrambled to secure their ropes and brace against the cliff face. One rescuer lost footing in the chaos, slipping slightly and causing a terrifying moment of imbalance on the cliff edge. Time seemed to freeze as everyone held their breath, waiting to see if the grip would hold. Miraculously, the climber regained control, steadying himself with a desperate grasp. The rock slide subsided as quickly as it had begun, leaving dust hanging in the air and everyone shaken but unharmed. With the immediate danger past, the team redoubled their efforts. Michael was carefully lifted from the ledge, secured in the harness, and slowly raised to safety. Ranger darted along the cliff above, his tail wagging weakly, but his eyes shining with relief. When Michael finally reached solid ground, the exhausted man collapsed into the arms of the rescuers, overwhelmed by pain and gratitude. The ordeal had tested every ounce of courage and skill, but the rescue had succeeded against the odds. Ranger A.S. bravery and relentless barking had been crucial in alerting the rescuers and warning them of the rock slide. As Michael was loaded into an ambulance waiting nearby, he looked back at the cliff one last time, knowing that without Ranger's loyalty and quick action, his fate might have been very different. The bond between man and dog had saved a life, but the Day S events had also set something else in motion, something neither of them could yet understand. After Michael was safely carried from the cliffside and placed into the ambulance, a deep sense of relief washed over everyone involved. The physical pain he endured was immense, but the gratitude for being alive overshadowed it. Ranger, though exhausted, remained close by, his tail wagging faintly as paramedics checked Michael's injuries. The dog's loyalty had been unwavering throughout the entire ordeal, and now, in the aftermath, that bond seemed even stronger. While medical teams prepared to transport Michael to the hospital, the rescue team gathered to debrief. The cliff area was cordoned off, and park officials began documenting the scene. Ranger's role in the rescue was praised repeatedly. His keen senses and relentless barking had not only alerted a stranger, but had also warned rescuers during the perilous climb. The dog's bravery had been critical in turning a near-fatal accident into a successful rescue. But just as everyone was beginning to feel the tension ease, something unexpected emerged from the surrounding woods. The hiker who had first responded to Ranger's barks approached the group cautiously. His demeanor was calm but serious, and the way he observed the scene hinted at a deeper understanding of the area than a casual visitor might have. He introduced himself simply but declined to explain much about his background. His presence sparked curiosity among the rescuers, who could not shake the feeling that he was more involved in this area than he let on. Later, the hiker was spotted near the cliffs again, moving quietly through the underbrush as if surveying the terrain. Unbeknownst to Michael or the rescue team, this man had a past that few knew about. Years ago, he had been a police search and rescue officer, but had left the force under mysterious circumstances. Rumors whispered that he had become entangled in cases involving illegal activities near the coastal cliffs, but had chosen to walk away before the truth could come fully to light. As days passed, local authorities began investigating reports of suspicious activity in the cliff's vicinity, prompted partly by the hiker's unusual behavior and partly by rangers' initial alert. What started as a simple rescue had become a key to uncovering a hidden criminal network operating in the shadows. Drugs and contraband were being smuggled through the remote coastline, using the difficult terrain to avoid detection. Michael, still recovering in the hospital, was unaware that his fall and rangers' heroic actions had unintentionally exposed this illicit operation. The investigation revealed secret camps hidden in caves and supply caches buried beneath dense vegetation. The once quiet hiking trails were now under surveillance, and several arrests were made in the following weeks. The man who had first heard rangers' call was quietly assisting law enforcement, using his knowledge of the area and past experience to track down the criminals. This twist added a complex layer to what initially seemed like a straightforward rescue. Ranger had saved Michael's life, and in doing so, had helped uncover a dangerous criminal enterprise. Michael's gratitude toward the dog deepened, knowing that Ranger AS instincts not only protected him, but also played a part in making the cliffs safer for others. As the story spread through news outlets and social media, Michael became an advocate for wilderness safety and responsible hiking. Ranger was celebrated as a hero, with stories of his loyalty inspiring many. But behind the headlines and the praise lay a deeper truth. The cliffs held secrets, and the bond between a man and his dog had unwittingly pulled back the veil shining light into a dark and dangerous corner of the world. What began as a personal tragedy had transformed into a broader story of courage, loyalty, and justice, proving that sometimes heroes come in unexpected forms, and even the wildest places can hide the most surprising stories. The aftermath of the rescue brought a wave of attention that neither Michael nor Ranger had expected. News outlets covered the dramatic fall, the dog's heroic behavior, and the daring rescue. Social media buzzed with stories and photos of the loyal German shepherd who had saved his owner's life. Michael, still healing from his injuries, found himself at the center of a story that went far beyond a simple hiking accident. But beneath the surface of public admiration, a surprising twist was unfolding, one that would change everything. The hiker who had first heard Ranger's urgent barking and called for help became a figure of interest to the local police and the media. He was soon identified as Thomas, a former police search and rescue officer with a complicated past. Officially retired, Thomas had chosen a quiet life near the cliffs, but investigators suspected his retreat was anything but peaceful. Rumors swirled that he had been quietly monitoring illegal activities in the area, activities that had long gone unnoticed by authorities. Thomas's involvement took on new meaning when investigators uncovered evidence of a hidden drug operation nestled deep within the coastal wilderness. Thanks to his knowledge of the terrain and the timing of the rescue, law enforcement was able to locate secret camps where smugglers stored contraband and planned their shipments. The operation had been using the isolated cliffs as a covert route, relying on the dangerous landscape to discourage discovery. Rangers' barking, which had seemed like a simple call for help, had actually played a vital role in exposing this criminal network. By alerting Thomas and bringing attention to the cliffs, the dog had unintentionally set off a chain of events that led to multiple arrests and the dismantling of a significant drug ring. What started as a personal tragedy had become part of a larger story of justice and bravery. Michael, once focused solely on recovery, found himself drawn into the unfolding investigation. Police officials reached out to him for information about the exact location of his fall, details about the terrain, and any unusual observations during his hike. Though still weak, Michael was eager to help, feeling a deep gratitude toward the people and the dog who had saved his life. His story became intertwined with the community's efforts to keep the cliffs safe and protect future hikers from danger. Throughout it all, Ranger remained Michael's constant companion, a symbol of hope and loyalty. The dog's instincts and courage had not only saved a life, but had also helped unravel a dangerous web of crime. Their bond grew stronger, a reminder of how much one dog's determination could change the course of many lives. The local community responded with admiration and support. Fundraisers were held to honor Ranger, and Michael used the attention to raise awareness about wilderness safety and the importance of caring for the natural world. He shared his story at schools and community centers, always emphasizing the extraordinary role Ranger had played. In the quiet moments, away from the spotlight, Michael and Ranger returned to the cliffs, now safer thanks to the investigation. The landscape, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had been transformed by courage, vigilance, and unexpected heroes. The cliffs still held their wild beauty, but now they also held a story of survival, loyalty, and justice that would never be forgotten. The remarkable journey from a terrifying fall to a daring rescue, and finally to a criminal investigation, showed how intertwined fate and bravery could be. It proved that sometimes the most unlikely heroes, like a loyal dog and a vigilant stranger, could change everything with a single act.